This is Cross Culture Podcast with Belle Tindall and Lauren Windle,
where we talk pop culture and current affairs from a Christian perspective. Belle, that's too loud.
That wasn't too loud.
Is that too loud? I feel like my enthusiasm is bubbling over. It's a Monday.
Too much energy.
I'm so pumped for this because this has been in the works for a little while. This is Cross Culture Podcast. Tell the people who are tuning in, tell them who you are, Belle.
I'm Belle. That's a good place to start. Do you know what, Lauren? I'm going to quote you. Right. So when Lauren introduced me to our lovely producer, Chris, shout out to Chris, she emailed and she said, "This is Belle. She's done a PhD and she's Welsh, but don't worry, I promise she is a laugh."
You can put that on your business cards. It's so
I think
true.
That pretty much nails it.
To be fair, I think a lot of Welsh people that I come across are really fun. PhD people,
not so
hit and
much.
miss.
Yeah, not so much. So I like that I've got everything going against me. That's what the intro sounds like. I know, she's got everything going against her, but somehow she's all right.
No. You're more than all right. You're one of my faves.
Really? Oh, okay,
yeah.
great.
Big time. But what do you actually do other than being Welsh and highly educated?
Yeah, that's a great question. I'm actually a writer, I guess, is the full-time job. I'm a writer for a little website called Seen and Unseen primarily. And then also I pop up in a million other different places as well. Mm-hmm. Anyone will take me, basically.
And who's your second favourite co-host to host podcasts with? After me.
Yeah, my second favourite podcast co-host is the old Justin Briley, isn't it?
He's such a legend.
He's an absolute podcasting legend. I think he's been doing it since like 2007, which to me is wild because did they even exist in 2007?
Podcasts were really big way, way back. And I remember it being like, but what is it? Like a radio show? Really big. Then I remember, I want to say around 2016, I was on a date with someone and he said, and I worked at News UK at the time, and he said, "I'm using the sound studio to record a podcast." And I was like, love, podcasts are dead. Okay.
They're done.
Podcasts are over. I don't know why you would be recording a podcast. He was like, no, like they're coming back. And my goodness, was he right? Is no one hiring me as a trend forecaster? You can't swing a cat without hitting a podcast these days. Absolutely. Left, right and centre.
Just close your eyes, spin and point and you'll find a podcast host, honestly.
Yeah. Talking of being on dates, I was at a Christian dating dinner. And I remember I sat next to a guy who was definitely too young for me, and he's now married. This was a few years ago, and said to him, this was when I worked at Premiere. I worked for a while at Women Alive, and I said I worked at Premiere, and he went on for about half an hour about Justin, and I hadn't even met the bloke.
Yeah, it does happen quite a lot. I'll go to things, right? And this is just such a weird, I'll go to things and people will know who I am, but they'll be like, "You're Justin Briley's like sidekick." I'm like the Robin to Justin Briley's Batman. It's fine. There are worse roles in life to have. But
if we become an established double act, who do you think is going to be referred to as the Batman and who do you think is going to be the Robin?
I think I've just got Robin energy, you know.
Do you know what? You must do, because I would never say that, which means that I must have Batman energy.
Which means you're Batman. If
you don't believe you're Batman in your own life story, then what are you doing, Belle?
Yeah, that's a good point. I'll work on that.
Okay. Well, so I, as Batman of this duo, am Lauren Windle.
Introduce yourself, Batman.
I'm Lauren Windle. I'm author of 2 books, soon to be 3. So Notes on Love, Notes on Feminism, and I've got an activity book called Drawing as Prayer coming out next year.
I didn't know this.
No, I don't think I haven't really started talking about it yet. It's super simple. It's just like when you cannot stay quiet and the silence and solitude is too much. So it's a little Bible verse, prayer, little prompt, and then you draw something while you pray. So it's like really easy, entry level, but like good time with God. So that's coming out next year. Journalist, and I often write for Seen and Unseen, which is obviously your baby, as well as other places. I do public speaking and I present whenever I'm doing public speaking, I say this and there's like an audible like, oh, in the room, that I present the dating show on Salt's YouTube channel.
Yeah,
and suddenly
do you know
there's
what?
like a set demographic of 20-somethings who go, that's where I knew her from.
Yeah, that is how I explain you to my friends. I'll be like, she does this, and this. And I'll be, oh, plus, you know, she's like the face of Salt's dating show. And then they're like,
I'm so much more than just third wheel dates, Belle. I've got more depth to me.
You are Batman. You're the Batman of third wheel dates.
I'm Batman, exactly. So cross culture, right? This is the podcast where we are talking about some current affairs stuff, but lots of like pop culture, what's going on out there in the world, but from the perspective of someone who is a follower of Jesus.
Yes, absolutely. And I think what we're watching, listening to, trends we're seeing, all of this kind of stuff. And there are resources out there. There are people and places that you can go to for this. But we wanted to do something that's really current and really snappy and week on week. What are we noticing? And how do we notice those things as people who have faith, which is kind of a bit interesting.
Someone told me that, I think it was Tony Blair, but it might have been Gordon Brown. It was one of that era of prime minister, right? Had somebody record almost like a voice note or a mini personal podcast for them in the morning, about 7 minutes long, just explaining like what happened on EastEnders the night before, what happened in Towie, you know, all of that stuff.
Yes.
So think of us, right? For you Christians who are got your head buried in a Justin Briley book or just straight up Bible, you know, listen, let us tell you what's going on out there, give you a few conversations points. You will be the most informed person at the dinner party and you're welcome.
You 100% will. And it's quite interesting, isn't it? Because I think as Christians, which we both are, we may as well just put that on the table. Yeah.
Oh, I'm very happy with that as a label.
Yeah. I'm all right with it. I don't know. It depends on the day, but I'm mostly all right with it. And I don't know. Culture can be a weird one, as in like pop culture, like because you're kind of told. I'm not one of these people who wants to totally ignore it. I think there's beautiful parts of it. And I think it tells us a lot about ourselves and a lot about our context and our cultural moment. But also we're supposed to come at these things with a Jesus lens, with a Jesus kind of slant on them. So we'll kind of be chatting through the complexities of that as well. And probably not having all the answers, but definitely having some interesting questions.
I'd say probably 0 answers, 100 questions.
Yeah, I think you're dead right.
That's it. That's where I'm coming from. And I have been very immersed in, this is so bad, right? There's going to be more highbrow stuff than just this, right? So I want to encourage people. Yeah. If you're not into this, push through the first 10, 15 because there's some deep things coming.
Listen, I'm going to bring up Julian of Norwich. We'll get there. It's going to come.
Yes. I've seen the notes and Julian of Norwich is coming up. So it's big things. I've been watching Married at First Sight UK.
Come on. I too have been watching Married at First Sight UK. Who hasn't?
Well, but lots of people haven't, it turns out. I did a little poll of some of my friends yesterday. Post-church, we had a games night. Turns out not everyone is watching Married at First Sight UK.
What? Why? Is my question. Here's the thing. I am, and this might upset you because I know that you are a connoisseur of all things reality TV, but I am slowly but surely like falling out of love with reality TV. I'm really just running out of steam with it. But listen, Married at First Sight, I just love it. I'm so willing to give the next like 8 weeks of my life solely to it.
Okay, so are you falling out of reality TV because of the increasing lack of reality involved in reality TV? Is that what we're saying? Like, are you yearning for the days of 2000 season 1 Big Brother?
I would say yes, but I didn't watch 2000 season 1 Big Brother. I was
probably too
5.
young for that. Yeah, so I was, oh gosh, am I 10 years older than you?
Yeah. No.
Wait.
No, you're not. Maybe I wasn't 5.
I don't know how old I was in 2000. That should be really easy maths, shouldn't it? 24 years younger. I was 12.
There you go. I mean, you were too young to be watching season 1 of Big Brother. What are you doing?
I remember getting like stung by the static on the telly because I had it down to like 5 on the volume and I was sitting so close to the screen. I remember Big Brother back then so well. And also as a former tabloid journalist, I have followed virtually all of the key trends in reality TV. not since I was 12, but certainly since I started working in journalism. Let me just give you a bit of background to Married at First Sight for those who are like a lot of my friends haven't watched it. Kicked off years ago with a very simple, very boring format in the UK. So we're on season 9. The first 4, maybe, I actually had to check, but maybe 5 seasons. I'd say they've got a different format and they're pretty boring. Going forwards, the show had huge success around season 4 and 5 in Australia. We completely changed our format to match theirs.
As we should.
And this series and last series in the UK have been the most popular. The one before that was slightly shorter. It had quite a bit of drama, but I think that they recruited exclusively for drama and they paid the price. Whereas the last 2 seasons have been very good watching. They've got 3 experts who help guide people through their relationships, and the marriage, and this is crucial, is not a legal marriage. No divorces are required if you walk away.
No.
Unlike Love is Blind now, where if you decide at the end of the process that you want to get married, that is a legal marriage now.
Wow.
So that's extra jeopardy. But Married at First Sight, you go through the process, you go through the ceremony, you're supposed to treat that person as if the paper is signed, but the paper's not signed. So there's no divorce procedure afterwards.
No, but they are living together.
Yeah, living together.
So they move into this swanky old looking flat complex. Where is that? That looks like South London somewhere.
If I could guess, I'd say Manchester, because I don't think that they would pay London prices. I don't know.
No, that just shows what a country bumpkin I am. I just see a big city and I think London.
Oh, it's the bright lights of London.
Oh, look at that, they're in the big smoke. So much. Anyway, swanky in Manchester then, maybe.
I think somewhere to me, it looks a bit like a new development in Leeds or something, which would be way more affordable to put people up. But I don't know.
Let's go Leeds.
Couple of things I've noticed about this series, right? So they have
hit us.
They have a hen do and a stag do, which I keep wanting to call a buck's night because I've been watching the Australian one so much.
A buck's night.
A buck's
night. The buck's night.
So at the hen do, that's where they introduce all of the women to each other. And they get together and they meet and they chat and they talk about all sorts of things. One of the things which is always straight on the agenda, no doubt because the producers have asked someone to pose the question, is do you intend to have sex on the first night? Like, are you going to consummate your marriage straight off? And there's always a big variety. And some people are like, if I'm in it, I want to give that a go. And some people are like, absolutely not. They're going to be on the sofa. We're going to need to ease into this, And what caught my eye, right, is that one of the women announced herself as celibate. So have we got a little clip of this?
So I'm actually celibate.
Oh my God, good for you, mate.
I'm 9 months celibate.
Okay.
Casual sex is very common now.
Yeah.
And it's like, you don't need to be in a relationship to have sex. For me, it's a bit different. I need to be in a relationship to have sex. I've been celibate 2 years before.
Oh, wow. I really, really hope for her after 9 months that he is good in the sack.
Like, different things make different females feel empowered, and I respect that. For me, that doesn't make me feel empowered.
I go 9 months without sex quite frequently. If that's what celibacy is, I'm celibate and I'm here with you.
What I'm noticing is that people use what I consider to be quite, not biblical language, but language that is quite religious or classically associated with religion, just to sort of describe a simple lifestyle choice. And then I started thinking, like, what is celibacy and what is abstinence and what is just not being in a relationship and not wanting to have casual sex? Like, what's the actual word for her decision there? Because it's not celibacy, because it's not that she's committed to never marrying, never having sex with anyone.
It's not celibacy. And I think, so in a few episodes later, I'm actually behind, but a few episodes later, I think one of the experts picks her up on this and they ask her a few more questions about her situation.
Celibacy.
And about her celibacy. And then they say, okay, no, that's abstinence. And I'm like, a producer definitely told him to do that.
But is it abstinence? Is that what abstinence is? Because I abstain from alcohol as a recovering addict, but not just until New Year comes and I'm ready.
Well, this is one of the things that I found really interesting about the way she said it. And I was going to bring this up with you because she says, I'm 9 months celibate. And that to me felt really recovery-like. Like you would say, I'm 9 months
clean.
Sober. I'm 9 months clean. I'm 9. So the way she said it, it was like she was recovering from an addiction or something. And I found the wording really interesting. And then I also found really interesting that like her husband didn't quite get it. Then he started calling her a celibate.
A celibate, yes. She's a celibate. And like
celibate.
that to me, I picture like a monk or something,
yes.
like someone who's taken holy orders.
Yes, yeah. I do too. So I would agree with both you and I don't even know what
he's
Paul.
Paul,
He's
yeah.
Paul.
Hunky Paul.
He's pretty hunky.
He's
yeah. Yeah, it's not celibacy, is it? Because I think celibacy is lifelong. And I think celibacy, now I could be wrong on this, and I have friends who are absolute experts on this, and so I pray they don't listen to this, and I've got it all wrong. But I think celibacy is celibacy as well when it's for a purpose. Because abstaining is taking something out of your life, but I think celibacy is then putting something else into it. So like holy orders. It's like a vow, exactly. It's not just a gap. So then life.
Do you have to be, I'm asking you this like you're an expert on this, but
I'm not a nun, ladies and gentlemen. I'm
do
not
we
a nun.
think that in order to announce yourself as celibate, that needs to be associated with a religious decision? Or can you be celibate because you've decided that you think that you shouldn't have sex until there's world peace? You know, something.
What a good question. I think it's definitely got religious background. It's definitely got religious leaning, and it is innately religious language. So I think it would still be a religious instinct within us, if you know what I mean. But yeah, I think more and more, and this is where I get nerdy, so tell me to shut up. But I think more and more we take super religious stuff and then we just secularize it. I wouldn't be surprised if celibacy is one of those things. So yeah, I will not have sex until, there's world peace, until at all. I think that could be a form of celibacy, just a secularized version.
The secularization of biblical, time-honored Christian wisdom is wild. Like my vicar of a previous church I went to, he took a sabbatical, and in that sabbatical he had a list of 60 books he was going to read in 3 months, that kind of thing. And he read I don't know if he hit his full target, because we never do we? But he worked through loads of books, including a load on human behavior and well-being and things. So more sort of self-help, psychology, neuroscience books in the mainstream than Christian. And he sat down with me and he was like, one of the books, and it was I can't remember which one it was, but it was a really big, been in the top 10 for ages. You'd see it in a service station, WH Smith, when they've got barely any books. And it said in it, you'll find that your mind responds, you release really good hormones when you tell the truth, even if it's a difficult thing to tell the truth. Actually that is biologically good for you to do when you speak the truth. And then the other thing he said was, one of them was you should just take a day each week, you turn off your phone, you do not check your emails, and you have that as your down day, and your mental health, your emotional health, your physical health will just be stronger. And he sipped on his coffee and he just went, Lauren, that advice is so good, it could be biblical.
That sounds a bit familiar, doesn't it?
Yeah, I feel the more science we do, the more we catch up with the message of Jesus.
100%.
This isn't fun police. Actually, you will feel more empowered if you are celibate. Well, no, hang on. I'm using that word in the way that she did there. If you are more discerning and careful about the level of intimacy you have in relationships, and if you allow it only to grow when the level of commitment does, right? And you will find that your mental health is improved when you take a step back and switch off for a full day and take Sabbath. All of this stuff, there's science to back it up now.
Yeah.
And everyone's mind is blown.
Everyone's mind is blown. Well, if you think about it, marriage, it's a biblical and religious concept, and we're watching a show that's completely secularized it. So I guess it's kind of interesting then that we're also seeing a show that's secularizing celibacy. Yeah. It's kind of interesting. But yeah, you're dead right.
There's something else that's winding me up about MAFS though. Can you guess what it is?
If it's the same thing that is really grating on me, Should we say it at the same time on the count of 3?
I think that we'll use different language to say it. But yeah, I think we should. It's people having... You're not saying anything.
Oh, sorry. Right, okay.
We're
3,
saying it
2,
at the same
1.
time. People saying
having an issue with curvy girls. Oh.
Yeah, and claiming that it's like they see
100%.
women who don't... I could honestly rant about this for ages.
I know.
Okay.
Go on.
Shall I?
Please. Open it up.
Look, as somebody who speaks on being single and dating, right? And particularly when it comes to the dating thing, this is an argument I had with a really good friend of mine a lot, because he was like, you cannot help it if you've got a type. There's nothing you can do about it. And I would argue that your type is a product of your exposure. And that is in terms of your physical, right? When I lived in France, when I first got there, I didn't really find French men attractive. They were often shorter than British men, often slimmer than British men, so physically.
No way. Who knew?
They dressed slightly differently. They had a different approach to dating, and it took me a while to get used to it. By the time 2.5 years later, when I was moving back to the UK, I thought to myself, I wonder if I can filter for French men on Hinge, because I've been surrounded by them and I've done some dating with French men. I've really enjoyed it, and what a brilliant experience. And now that's what I find attractive. And then you come back, and now I've been around British men, and now it's all about dating Gregs again. You know, like, so.
Oh, Lauren, you're with more than that.
There's nothing wrong with a sausage and
Put
bean
that
now.
French filter back on. Come on now.
But, you know, it's a product. If you're a person who grew up in a predominantly white area, I'm not surprised if you don't find people from an Asian background or people who are black attractive, because you just don't know them. You don't know them well enough to see them as individuals who have that potential. And that's just a case of acclimatizing and humanizing people who you haven't spent a lot of time with. Not necessarily people who are different to you, but just people you haven't been exposed to much. Yes. I think that's the issue. And there's another thing. And actually, look, I've got this. So Paul, the expert from the show, Pretty Paul, absolutely. He posted something online about this after one episode where they really challenged 2 of the blokes because they're both matched with curvier women. And I say that very guardedly because one of them has said, you know, I'm a size 14.
Yes.
You know, that is not, we're not talking about clinically obese, you know, like, my goodness, that woman's life expectancy is going to, she's literally curvy. You know, she's not fat at all. And so anyway, his whole thing, both of these guys have been like, I see myself as someone more petite. I find someone who's a bit more petite attractive. And that's my type. And they've used that to sort of fall back on. So here's what Paul posted on his Instagram. I want to be clear about where I stand on the idea of types. Research shows that when people narrow their attraction to a specific type, it's often a sign of lower self-esteem. They're seeking someone to validate them. But those with higher self-esteem are open to a wider range of people, focusing on connection and deeper qualities rather than just physical traits. This is why we need to move the conversation from finding someone who fits a type to helping people build self-worth. When we do that, we don't just become better partners, we grow as individuals. Boom.
Thank you, Pretty Paul.
Thank you, Pretty Paul. I think it's a self-esteem issue. I think that you look at another person and you go, what will other people think if I walk down the street with that person?
Yes, which I think is the exact case with both of the men mentioned in that episode. Because one of them has openly said, I struggle with my own body image. And then the double standard between him being very vulnerable in his get to know me VT about his own body image. And then the way he spoke to his partner, I think her name is Emma. Just an aside about Emma, she is by far my favourite contestant on this year's MAFS. She's phenomenal. Yeah. She's the one who said, actually, isn't she? She's the voice you hear saying,
clip,
listen, if that's
celibacy.
I'm celibate all the damn time. Which I think is excellent.
Excellent.
So that double standard, you can absolutely fully see that it is a self-esteem issue. And the other guy who really struggles with his partner in regards to her body image. Now, I don't want to do what he's doing, but I look at him and it's quite obvious that he's had a lot of cosmetic work done to him.
Oh, do you think? Maybe I just...
yeah, definitely.
So
I might be wrong.
We're talking about the guy who's the barber, right?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. Well, I don't know. If he has, I don't know.
He looks... Well, he's definitely gone
like maybe
for
some
look.
Botox or something.
Some Botox. I'm not convinced that's his real hair. and that he's got a big old, like, he's like had like a lot of cosmetic dental work done. So just this idea that he quite obviously has modified himself for this certain look, which again, I guess.
I agree that he's definitely had his teeth done in the way that so many people who are on reality TV, whatever, they get 100%. Their veneers done and things like that. I thought that both of those couples were physically like a decent match. It wasn't like you've really shot for like Beauty and the Beast in one way or the other. Like, I think all of the couples, even though they haven't seen each other before, could very reasonably find the other attractive based on their own appearance. Yeah. But I do get frustrated with people wanting something that they can't offer. And I remember having this conversation with a friend of mine. He was like, I want someone who exercises a lot. And this guy was in no way in bad shape at all, but he's a good friend of mine. And I knew he didn't really exercise. He was just built the way he was built. I was like, I wonder if that's what you're looking for in a partner. Can you offer your partner the same? You know? And then he started exercising a lot. And that's the end of that story. And now he's got a girlfriend who also exercises a lot, and they enjoy doing that together. So
what a happily ever after.
The end.
Yeah, it's just really interesting. And I think it feels quite jarring because I don't know about you. Maybe it's because I haven't watched a huge amount of reality TV recently. But man, it feels like a while since we've had to have these conversations about women's body on reality show, at least so explicitly. I feel like it's quite jarring. Like, explicitly, I haven't heard someone say to a woman, you are too curvy for me to find you attractive, in a long time.
No, particularly because the sort of standard beautiful woman shape has changed.
Exactly.
And it's no longer the sort of 90s, very sort of up and down, sort of very slim body that's revered. It's the sort of Kim Kardashian extra curves. So that has sort of paved the way for women who are... Do I want to say larger? Because I don't really think we're talking very big here.
We're really not.
Women who are not that level of 90s supermodel slim to kind of embrace their shapes in a new way. So, yeah, I agree. I mean, Love Island always comes under fire for having women with unattainable body standards. And I think we haven't had that conversation recently just because we're bored of saying the same thing. I don't think it's... They definitely tried, and they introduced a few people who were maybe one dress size bigger. But as far as I'm concerned, still had the absolute ideal body type and were like out of this, you know, just completely off the scale in terms of their physical appearance. So I don't know how good that is.
Do you know what I'm loving seeing though? And this is the last kind of piece of rant I'll put on this, is these two women in question, Polly and Emma. They are super sexy and they're dressing incredible, like the way they love their own bodies in defiance. In defiance of the way these men are speaking to them. I was watching it last night and I was saying to my sister-in-law who I was watching it with, I was like, their confidence, I'd be a mess. But that's the one redeeming factor of this whole annoying strand of this show, is that these women are incredible and know it. And so that's nice to see. They model
the confidence very well for people watching. I would say, I reckon there is a significant cost to being spoken to like that about your body on camera and having to present an exterior of resilience. Like, there will be at least 2 years of therapy for them to get their inner feelings about themselves in line with what they're projecting. I don't want to speak that on them, and I hope that that's not the case.
But I know...
I know myself well enough to know that I would present strong to that. And then I would, you know, I'd be on the phone to my sister like, oh my gosh, this is awful, you know. And they don't have phones. They can't speak to their family.
Of course they don't have phones.
Yeah. Those who have children are allowed dispensation to speak to their children. But that's
where do you get all these little facts? Who are your little moles in the...
I listen to podcasts about how things are made, and I've worked at tabloid journalism places where I do all of those. Also, I have worked with Charlene, the other expert, on her book.
Come on.
So I ploughed...
Big earrings.
Big earrings. Amazing
long nails,
earrings. Always different colour hair.
Always. Yeah, she's gone blue this season. Oh, right, okay.
Big time.
Is she as amazing as she seems?
You would love her. You would absolutely love her.
Should we get her on the podcast one day?
Yeah. Well, actually, when we were working on her book, we did chat a bit about some of the women in her network who go to church and how they find this sort of Christian dating thing. And often, particularly those who are in the older categories, struggle with meeting really good men and stuff. So maybe I should drop her a little message.
Oh, please do. And I'm sure we will talk about this so much over this coming season of this podcast. But because of course you are a dating and relationships expert. You also love Jesus. So
proper
love him.
Yeah.
So this whole thing, we will chat about it so much.
So I was at a wedding recently, right? Where I never come out as Christian because it's kind of my work. Like people know, you know, like, do you know what I mean?
The come out thing is hilarious. My mum is so like, has such a phobia of people knowing that she's a Christian that she always talks about coming out.
Does she?
And having a coming out party.
Yeah.
And I wonder when we're going to get told off for appropriating coming outs.
Oh, yeah, I hadn't thought of that.
Nah, I love it.
Okay,
Anyway,
revealing myself. Anyway, so but like I do remember back in the day at work before I did anything in like Christian media, I remember the sort of like coming out section of that. So I was at a wedding and someone said to me, and the wedding was tiny, it was 20 people. And the bride's sister said, "You couldn't do this though, could you, Lauren? Because like, if you just invited your close friends, like how many people would that be?" And I was like, well, my sort of inner circle church mates WhatsApp group is 21 people. So 20 people and then me. And there was another person in the conversation who absolutely looked blown away. And he was like, "Church, what?" And he gave me quite a hard time about it. And he was one of those people who's like clearly very intelligent, very well thought through, works in government, very quick, very sharp, and just thought, I am going to tear you to shreds for this. So then I started like making a few jokes back and forth, but it was clear that there was a bit of anger there. So do you know what I did when I got home? I ordered him Spufford's Unapologetic, and I'm going to send it to him because the guise of the conversation was, I find this really interesting. And I'm like, if you find this really interesting, here's the guy, right?
Oh,
and you recommended this book to me. So it's like one of your faves.
It's one of my Francis Spufford's Unapologetic. And I think the byline, if I get it right, is why, despite everything, Christianity makes surprising sense. I just outed myself as a massive nerd.
No, that's not nerdy. The thing I love about it, right, is that we're surrounded by amazing theologians. We're surrounded by deep thinkers. We as Christians are not surrounded by incredible, and I mean absolutely elite standard writers. There are plenty of very good writers, but excellent Olympic level writers tend to be in the mainstream. And we have a few, right? But Spufford, he's a creative writing professor. So he's a writer first, and he's written fiction in the mainstream, like for the mainstream market.
Yes, he
has. And his writing is just, he like rewrites the life of Jesus at some point in the book, just to bring it to new life, you know, as an addition, obviously not to replace the way the Bible tells it, but as an addition. And it is captivating.
It is. I am never not reading this book. I think literally it's so embarrassing, but I am never not reading it. And I think partly because I need to be reminded that you can speak about Christianity in very creative ways. Do you know what I mean? Like I just need that reminder. And also because it's the book I wish I wrote. So whenever 100%. Whenever I'm writing anything else, I'll kind of think, what would Spufford
say?
What would Spufford say? I need that tattooed on my arm. What would Spufford say, Belle? And in many ways, like his mission in it, it's what I want to do with every piece of writing I ever do.
Yeah.
It's so bloody good.
It's
but
so good.
I actually, and I don't mean to name drop, this would be a pretty humble brag actually, but I got to interview him.
I love it when people... Did you?
Yeah.
Are you busy mates?
I tried to be, but we haven't spoken since.
Okay, but I'm going to need you to work harder on that because I want him in. I want him in the circle. You know?
I 100% want him in the circle. I know. I interviewed him, and what was so great about interviewing him was when you speak to him, he's just as great as when you're reading him. He just said some incredible things that I use as quotes all the time, and he just like spouted them out in his interview.
Wait, and is this interview, this is out somewhere, is it?
This is a Re-Enchanted episode.
Okay, we have to put that in the show notes.
Yeah, we'll put it in. It's the first one I ever did. And he's amazing. I think what's great about him is that he, like you say, he's a writer and then thought, okay, I'll just write about Christianity then. As opposed to a Christian who thinks, I should just be able to write about Christianity because I am Christian.
Yeah.
And I love, like, bless you if you're out there thinking that, but you know.
Well, look, like as somebody who works for a Christian publishing house, I'm very much open to hearing from those people.
Yeah. There you go. I'll also put Lauren's email address in the show notes and you can just send her your pictures.
Anything else book-wise? What's going on the bookshelf?
On the old bookshelf, I'm such a book worm. I'll always have odd things on the bookshelf. Yeah, I really am. At the moment, I am reading a rom-com, old Beth O'Leary.
So my cousin has...
Oh, stop. Are you about to say that you know Beth O'Leary?
No, not at all. I went for a walk with my cousin the other week and she has been relentlessly reading Beth O'Leary, Sophie Kinsella, like these kind of rom-com books.
Yes.
And she told her therapist, and her therapist said that the narrative arc in these stories is somebody coming to new realizations about themselves. Often, obviously, a woman, not realizing what's important, having a few things go wrong, finding herself at the end, right? And it's a journey of discovery. It's that narrative arc, that transformation. And I was 100%. Like, okay, but I'm constantly reading at the moment cozy murder mysteries. What does that mean about me? Apparently, that means I'm looking for justice.
Ah.
Yeah.
Are you?
Always a little bit, I suppose, but I don't feel particularly hard done by pursuit. Right now.
Also,
it's not that I don't like justice.
It's not as if I'm actively like going, blocking it.
I'm not shunning it.
No, fair enough. What makes a mystery cozy?
Okay, so I'll tell you. Octogenarian sleuths, I think.
Are we talking Richard Osmond-esque?
Okay, so Richard Osmond, obviously we're kicking off with Agatha Christie, and then there's a few others. But Richard Osmond, Anthony Horowitz, I'd say is my absolute fave. Okay. But then I've also read like the Marlowe murder mysteries, the Charity Shop mysteries, the Dinner Lady mysteries. I'm absolutely slamming through anything that feels a little bit rural and a little bit British. They drink tea, they do crosswords, they stumble across clues. They're so unassuming the police don't even realise they're there,
Really? Okay. Have you seen that the Richard Osmond one is being made into a Netflix show?
It doesn't surprise me at all. Which one is it? Is it the first one? Death by whatever it is?
Something about Thursday.
Oh, the Thursday Murder Club. Yeah.
That's it.
Sorry,
something about Thursday. Yeah.
Do you know what? It's good. I like it because it's so easy to follow. There's very few different strands going. You can concentrate, you can not concentrate, and you've got it, Yeah,
that's exactly why I like rom-com. This is going to be a theme where I feel like every week I'm just going to bring a different piece of chick lit to the table. Do you know what? Like, I will come out fighting in defense of romantic comedy.
Okay.
I really will.
I don't engage much with the books. But I do, obviously, with the films, because hello,
who wouldn't? But I just think that old enemies to lovers trope, right?
Oh, people it's very Mills and Boone, that.
People bash it, but I will lap it up. It is good for a reason, right? It's a cliche for a reason. A good rom-com is a piece of art. I will die on the hill of defending them.
Are you
Beth
telling
O'Leary is a good
people
rom-com.
Listening that they should be reading The Wake Up Call? What do you think Jesus would think of The Wake Up Call?
Think about The Wake Up Call? Well, this is where we, would he talk about the old abstinence and the... There's
a bit of cheeky...
there might be. I'm not that far into it yet, but there might be. Yeah, this is the thing is, I just think it's a good piece of creativity, a rom-com.
If I read it and hate it, I'm going to be so furious at you.
Oh, this is the problem though, you might.
I tell you whose rom-coms I do read, and that's because she's a friend of mine. Have you come across Elizabeth Neep?
Yeah.
Yeah. So Elizabeth Neep, she writes under her name and she also writes under the name Lizzie O'Hagan. And there are several that are really good, but The Visa is probably my favourite.
I reckon I could guess what that's about from the title. Yeah, do they have to get married for a visa and then they fall in love while they're married? Is this MAFS but in a chick lit?
Maybe not.
First
I'm not
comes
going to
marriage,
ruin
then
it for
comes
you.
Love. Right. Elizabeth Neep, from what I know, loves Jesus. So does she ever talk about the connection between rom-coms and Jesus?
I go for coffee with her and stuff. And if I asked her that, I feel like I would be putting her to work a bit. But I can tell you that there was a trend a while back of very gentle rom-coms that didn't have a huge amount necessarily of like sex or swearing or anything like that. And she got in at the right time for that trend.
Okay.
And also when there were increasing numbers of Christian characters in mainstream books. And I have seen that quite a lot recently.
Have you?
Yeah, there was one I read really recently, and there was a character who was constantly quoting Jesus, like to her friend who was getting into all of these kind of exploits and sleeping with that person and being bad at her job there. She had a friend who was always going like, you know, quoting God. All of the characters were Black British, and I do think that there's a bit more of a kind of association,
100%.
cultural association with Bible, you know, in that culture. But so The Spare Bedroom was Elizabeth Neep's first one. And that had a Christian character in it.
That's brave.
Was wasn't the main character, but was part of it. And that was really good. That's good.
So interesting. The only book I've read with a Christian character is like a Marilyn Robinson book where they go deep. But it'd be so good to see more rom-coms with Christian characters. Can I redeem myself though?
You're going to want to.
Yeah, I think so. So as well as Beth O'Leary, I'm also reading, and I promised it, here it is, Julian of Norwich.
Yeah. And this is what everyone's been waiting for, really. Since we said it.
You're welcome,
like, finally, they've gotten to Julian of Norwich. And what's the deal? Tell me about our Jew.
Our Jew? That's the best thing I've ever heard. Our Jew. So she was a woman, a mystic. She lived she's medieval, right? And I think it was 14th century. And she lived in a tiny little room on the side of St. Julian of Norwich Church, but blocked up. So that the door was blocked up.
I've heard about this woman. Yeah. Yes.
So
wasn't there a hatch of some kind?
There's two hatches. One that goes into the church so that she could be given communion and chat to her priest when she needed it. And one that went out into the street because she became so famous and infamous. People used to come to her for advice. And so she'd be able to give people advice and pray for people through this little window on the street. And we know very little about her, like almost next to nothing. But she came very close to dying. While she was nearly dying, she had some mad visions of God.
Sorry, so she came close to dying while she was locked in a darkened room with no exercise?
No, sorry. She came close to dying, and so she locked herself in a dark room with no exercise.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay, that's a very important distinction.
I think so, yeah. So she had these visions of God, and then she decided to lock herself in this room to really ponder them, and she wrote them down, and they are now a book called Revelations of Divine Love. And they're phenomenal.
Is the language modernised, or are you properly going for it?
Oh, I'm reading the modernised translation.
Okay, just checking.
Old English? No way. No way. That's stuff for like English A-level. I ain't touching that.
So if I were to pick up this book, I was going to say, how's it going to help me? But that's a bit of a selfish...
No, this is the thing. So I started reading it because I was interviewing a Julian of Norwich expert for the other podcast that we don't talk about. My second favourite podcast. And so I started reading Julian of Norwich, and she's helped in ridiculous ways. She's so like, the way she writes is so brave and so weird. And the way she talks about God is so creative and not at all bland. So I think if you are just looking for something that's poetic and really emotional and brave, and she doesn't really care about being theologically correct, she's just writing down what she saw. Wow. If you are in the mood for that, if you feel like I'm sick of reading bland books about Christianity, Julian of Norwich is your girl. She's insane. It's ridiculous. It's
Who'd
so
have
good.
thought it?
And also, this is where it's not a total unrelated to Beth O'Leary. She was only the first woman ever to write a book in English. Our Jew.
I love how you're claiming that makes her connected with Beth O'Leary.
Well, you're welcome, Beth O'Leary. Do you know what I mean?
That is bold. That's cool. That is actually, you've sparked you had my attention before, but you've got an extra layer of it now, I'd say.
Thank you. I've got a real thing at the moment for, just give me a mystic and I'm a happy girl.
I have been increasingly exposed to people talking about mystics. So I've had a lot of secondhand contact, but I would say I haven't crossed the Rubicon yet.
I know.
To
I
connect.
really have. I'm doing it partly personally and partly for a work project.
Yeah.
But we won't talk about that way. But look, I mean, this is a podcast, so you're not going to be able to see. Sorry, listeners, but Lauren can tell you, like, look at this chunky book I'm working my way through.
Oh, that's a big boy.
Literally just called Mysticism, the whole thing. I just love it.
That's not the Julian of Norwich, though.
No, this is
a whole
Evelyn
other-
Underhill. And what I love is there are some real contemporary people doing a similar kind of thing. So
yeah. Letters by a Modern Mystic is one that we republished on form. I work for SPCK Publishing House. I should just say that. Don't think I've already said that. That we republished on form a little while ago, and people blooming love it. And there's Chris Webb has got a book coming out at some point soon. Curious Oh no, what have I started here? Contemplative. No, how do you say it?
Are you putting an extra syllable in there? Contemplative.
Is that it?
I don't know. Is that it?
I think I'm trying to say contemplate
With an
at the
if
beginning
at the end.
of contemplative. Say it again.
Contemplative.
I'm smarter than that small bit makes me sound. And I need you and anyone listening to know that.
I can confirm that is true.
Take that to the bank.
I just love it. And also, you have people who aren't Christians or have not been religious jumping on the mystical spiritual bandwagon. And so
it's fun.
Oh, so fun. So an article I read recently was a guy, John Harris from The Guardian. He's an absolute Guardian hero.
Okay, and I don't read The Guardian, so talk to me.
About The Guardian?
No, I know, I'm aware of The Guardian.
You know what The Guardian is.
It's not one of my, it's not in my bookmarks, I'd say.
Makes me sound like a champagne socialist, doesn't it, that I read The Guardian? I only read the music stuff. I just want to put that out there for people. I am
sorry, I'm
that.
not judging The Guardian. It is it is the paper of choice for students up and down the country. And
I'm judging myself. No, The Guardian. Do you know what? My boyfriend is an absolute Guardian, like walking, talking advert, and he's definitely rubbing off on me, and it's annoying me. But anyway,
I was on the tube to the second day of the Hillsong Women's Conference years ago when I still worked in tabloid papers. And by then, everyone's got their lanyards, right? So 2 women sitting opposite me saw that I had the lanyard on, struck up a conversation, asked me what I did. And I said, I work for this tabloid newspaper. And they're like, oh, okay. And then as we were walking to the Wembley, wherever this thing was.
The Wembley.
It wasn't the Wembley football bit. It was the Wembley other bit, you know?
Oh, fair enough. That shows how much I know. I just thought there was one Wembley and you went to the Wembley.
Well, no, there's Wembley Stadium and then like maybe Wembley Conference Centre or something, which is all indoors. And they do concerts there, but it's slightly smaller capacity, but it's still obviously massive. So we're walking up to that building and they go, oh, what did you study then? And I said, oh, actually my degree's in neuroscience. And the woman goes, oh, but you could work somewhere really good then, like The Guardian. I was like, the newspaper I work for has the highest circulation in the country, but you know, where The Guardian is at the time anyway, of all of the print newspapers had the lowest circulation. And I was like, that, I see where you're coming from, but in my industry, that wouldn't represent necessarily a promotion. Success. I mean, it very much depends on what you want to write about, doesn't it? Because they're different beasts. But from then on, I always felt a bit resentful towards The Guardian.
Oh, well, I'm sorry. In which case, you won't know of John Harris, but John Harris is
he's a star, is he?
He's a Guardian star, yeah. He has a column. He's pretty great. But anyway, he reviewed Nick Cave's Wild God album.
Okay.
Now I could wax lyrical about this album, but I won't. But what's interesting about the album is that it's about God, it's about spirituality, it's a bit mystic, it's a bit weird. It's a bit Julian of Norwich-esque, actually. I wrote a review of it in which I basically argued that it's kind of made of the same stuff.
Okay.
What this John Harris guy, his headline is literally, I'm a devout agnostic, but like Nick Cave, I hunger for meaning in our chaotic world.
Oh, and hello.
Oh, hello indeed, literally. Now, I know John Harris hasn't read my work because why would he?
He might have.
But I'm literally looking at it and I'm like, damn it, those are my ideas and you're way more famous than me. Now everyone's going to think they're your ideas. But what he's basically saying is that spirituality is on the rise because we're trying to fill a gap that we've been pretending wasn't there for the past 10 to 15 years. And so the popularity...
longer, I think.
Yeah, I think you're right. And so the popularity of meditation and mindfulness and then he talks about the ritualistic pleasures of summer festivals. So even these things that we think are secular, completely like there's no God in them at all. What he's saying is this is spiritual. This is all spiritual. And I just think that that's so interesting. And my last thing on this, I was chatting to a friend of mine, Kate Bowler, who's got an amazing podcast of her own.
Name dropping.
Yeah,
I'm name dropping too, though, so that's fine.
Yeah.
I name dropped Charlene from Married at First Sight. And I'm not sad about that.
And that is a good one. Maybe we should limit ourselves to like one per rep.
Well, I'm about to say that I have come across Nick Cave. Am I allowed to say that?
Shut up. Yeah, you can say that, but I'm not happy about it.
Well, so...
This is going to be the most London bougiest story. I can literally feel it coming, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, I thought so. Right, come on, hit me with it.
So my ex-partner was a very big part of a network which is headed up by... She's amazing. Baroness Stroud. So the fact that I'm using the term Baroness, I know. But she's phenomenal. And she does organise a lot of different networking events and stuff. And I have had contact with her completely independently of him anyway. So already had like an existing sort of relationship whereby I asked her to mentor me and she had absolutely no time to do so. So said no.
A polite no.
A very polite no. But then she sort of invited me to a few of these events where you meet great thinkers and you chat to them. And in my capacity as a journalist, absolutely loved meeting some of these people who are Christians, who are placed in many different incredible sort of industries and stuff like that. And Nick Cave is a very distinctive looking man, right?
Oh, yeah.
He's got a real look.
Sure.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And several times I saw him at these events and I thought, if that guy's not famous, what a waste. You know, what a waste with an appearance like that. He's so imposing. Yeah. And then I was like flicking through a newspaper like a few months ago and I saw him and I was like, crikey, he is famous.
Oh my gosh. Right. Do you know what? Whatever. You must be God's favourite out of the two of us. That's fine.
Well, I'm sure I can drop Baroness Stroud a message and see if I can get you into some of these dinners. But if it's just so that you can approach him with your little autograph book, then probably she'll say no. But
she probably will. And I have actually approached him for a little autograph before and it didn't go down that well.
Oh, really?
No,
so
it was
you've met
fine.
him as well?
I have met him, but not in any kind of like cool capacity.
Oh.
I fangirled.
Okay.
Yeah,
that's
fine.
That's cool.
We're fine. Yeah,
It's
that's
not
cool. It's really not. I'm not proud of it, but there we go. Anyway.
It seems like this John Harris guy has squeezed a lot of spiritual thinking into one album review.
Heck yes.
Okay.
That's exactly what he's done. I think it's because Nick Cave has squeezed a lot of spiritual stuff into the album. It is the unapologetic of the music world, is what I would say.
That's really bold. I might have to listen to it.
Yeah.
So there's one more thing I wanted to draw your attention to.
Yes.
Obviously, these days, so much news and thinking and writing is not on newspapers and magazines or even necessarily blogs in the traditional sense, right? Substack is where so many people, and it's like, what do you subscribe to? Because there's like a million different things here. So I rely on the good nature of my friends. And one friend who's not Christian forwarded me a Substack from Stat Significant, right? And the topic was, and I've gone back and you can still view this without subscribing. It's in their archive. And the topic was the rise of faith-based films, a statistical analysis. And it was so interesting because it's all based on stats. Yeah.
You're going to have to do some work to tell me why that's interesting.
How can you not think that that's going to be interesting?
No, the stats of faith-based films. Tell me the story.
Well, okay, now I feel pressure to portray this well. Can I just say, read it and then come back and we'll talk about it next week? No, I've got to do it properly. Yeah. Right, so he's basically saying that there's almost this trend where there'll be one big breakout Christian film that makes a huge amount of money. Then there'll suddenly be all these think pieces, all of these people going, oh, Christian films, Christian cinema, this is the way forward, you know, blah, 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 we should do this. And then it kind of just dies down. And then 5 years later, it happens again. And then it's just this cycle of people going, oh, guys, we're sleeping on this whole genre of film that could be making us loads of money. So
Are we talking your Passions of the Christ?
Okay, so Passions of the Christ comes up, right? Passion of the Christ comes up because it was the highest grossing independent film of all time. All time.
No way.
So obviously they referenced that. It brought in $611 million. So what's his name now? Oh, Mel Gibson. What's your man called? Right, Mel Gibson approached loads of mainstream production, what do they call them? Studios. Yeah. And they weren't interested. So in the end, he funded it. He raised the funding and independently produced it. And it absolutely blew up. And at that time, obviously, it was really highly criticized because it was very gory. It was very graphic, very violent. But also, it just did so well. And other films, okay, Christian films are a bit cheesy. You know, God is Not Dead. God is Not Dead 2. Fine. They're a bit Americanized for my liking. Okay. War Room, though, I absolutely love.
I have not seen that.
I love it. I think I pronounced her name right as Priscilla Shearer.
Priscilla Shearer, yeah.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Okay, great. So I think that her profile raised after she was in it, but she's a phenomenal speaker anyway. She was at that Hillsong conference when I was told I could be working for The Guardian, and she absolutely smashed it, and she was brilliant. So I think she's great, but the premise of the film, there's something really powerful about it. That one did incredibly well. And basically their argument is that Christian films are very low budget to produce. There's a huge audience for them that we kind of just dismiss. When you think globally, the number of people who engage with Christian media, you know, it is high.
2.5 billion-ish.
2.5 billion. Do you know what I mean?
That's just how many Christians there are. I don't know if they're all watching Christian movies, but let's say they are.
But still, that's an audience worth creating for.
It's chunky, yeah.
So they're saying they're cheap to produce and they're profitable. So in sort of Hollywood, the line for producing films where they say, okay, that was worthwhile doing, is if you gross 1.5 times your budget, which they regularly do. But here's the rub. Here's where the stats come in. This is regardless of their reviews and ratings. Often they have awful receptions from proper reviewers in newspapers, professional reviewers, and often they have very bad ratings on Rotten Tomatoes, IMDb, and the places where you rank films. Doesn't matter. It does not have any sort of correlation with the amount of money they take. Well, what's going on there then? Do you know what I mean?
What is going on there then?
Can you tell me now that is interesting?
Yeah, that's really interesting. And of course, I guess The Chosen. I mean, it's not a film, it's a series, but would that be in this?
Chosen wasn't referenced because I think they're speaking specifically about films. And I haven't seen stats on how that... I mean, I've seen it because it's in my sphere and it's on my social media and people talk about it, and they've got a stand and a half pipe at festivals. I haven't actually watched it, is my confession. But I'm very aware of it. Yeah. So I assume it's doing well.
Well, I think it's similar to Passion of the Christ, but in TV terms, I think it's got the highest funding of any independent. It was the biggest crowd-funded project ever.
Oh, wow.
And continues to be.
That's so cool.
And so production has just gone up and up and up and up because it's doing so well. And it's completely free to access. So it's they don't even need the profit. It's ridiculous.
Oh.
So you're right. What is happening?
What is happening? And that is going to be one of the questions rather than answers that we leave people with, I think.
Yeah. Do you know what? Give us the answer, people. Good people.
Yeah.
Yeah, that is fascinating.
Thanks,
and
love.
Maybe I'll watch War Room then.
Oh, watch it. I'd say it's a good one for when you're I'm going to rewatch Bridget Jones. When you're in that mood, watch War Room instead. It's not the same, but it's when you're looking for something quite comforting. There's a little emotion in it, but it all comes good and it feels like God's there. War Room.
Less swearing, I imagine, in War Room than in Bridget Jones.
Zero swearing. We never find out how many cigarettes Priscilla Shearer smoked, how many units of alcohol she drank, and what her weight is. And I think the film is improved for that, I've got to say.
Yeah, and that is a point to War Room.
And that is in its favour. So there we go.
Sounds great. Consider me converted. So we've done it. We've just recorded episode 1 of Cross Culture, Lauren.
By Jove, we've got it.
By Jove. And do you know what? This was meant to be, and I only realised it was meant to be when I read our names aloud. And our names are Belle Tindall and Lauren Windle. We're Tindall and Windle.
Wait, why are you saying Tindall and Windle? What if we were to be Windle and Tindall?
Yeah, Windle and Tindall is just as funny. I just think this is great. I think
Twindle.
The
Twindle twins.
pals. Well, if that doesn't make you want to tune in for episode 2, I honestly don't know what will.
Hard to say what would convince you if that hasn't done it. So while this episode is dropping just a tiny bit later in the week, from now on, these are going to be out every Wednesday. So make sure that you tune in for more from this season of Cross Culture. Say bye, Tindall.
See you later, pals.
Bye, friends.